Cool. Welcome to the first podcast for the world's finest strike podcast. We took that name basically because of the USS Hewitt, which my guest today is him and I served together on the USS Hewitt. So, Rob, I'd like to welcome you to the very first podcast. I did start with Voices of the Sea, but unfortunately, somebody else had that on Spotify, and I'm like, darn it, I'm not, dealing with that. So it's still the same art. I just I have to make it a little bigger to say it's the world's finest strike podcast. So
Right.
I created this basically to really help sell the book. I got the book here. We can publish,
Right.
I can go out and say, hey, buy the book. Go to underwaybooks.com. It's on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. It's everywhere. And Rob, thank you again for joining me on this first podcast.
Oh, no
Could
problem.
you introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Robert Clements. Pat and I served on the USS Hewitt in Japan. I've been out since '93. Been a minute. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a 10x business coach. I have, I guess, 4 or 5 businesses running right now. One of those is Sailor Sludge Coffee, which is kind of a pun on the gourmet coffee that I sell because the coffee in the Navy is anything but gourmet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's me. Oh, well, born and raised in Atlanta. Still live in Northwest Georgia. That's about it, I guess.
Excellent. Well, thanks. Yeah, and this coffee's great. I do have the hat. It's also embroidered with the USS Hewitt DD 966, and I always have to watch out whenever I talk about just the letter designations for the ship, because my first ship was the Towers DDG 9, so
Right.
it was an Adams class destroyer where we had a Bruins class with the Hewitt. So
So
yeah,
the people that don't understand that, that's like the difference between getting a 1930s Oldsmobile and getting a 1955 V8 Chevrolet Bel Air. I mean, it was a total different era in the type of ships they were, and the armament and the electronics and crew cult. I mean, and just the comfort for the crew. I don't even want to imagine what y'all had to sleep on there.
Yeah, it was pretty bad on the Towers. And I just remember just pulling myself up into the upper rack because I had a nice big pipe on one side and the handles on the other, and I just swung my legs up, and it was horrible. And when I walked onto the Hewitt, just nice big open alleyways where I didn't have to worry about that. And you kind of had to hit a step to get into that third rack if you had to go up that high. I think I probably right at that point went middle rack, and I was good to go for that whole year.
Yeah,
And
the
like you
Hewitt
said,
was like a Hilton.
exactly. And we had air conditioning in the racks.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we were in the Middle East, it was so much easier. So
Oh yeah, because the ship that I came from before I went to the Hewitt was AD-18 USS Sierra. Its keel was laid in '39,
oh,
commissioned in '44, and it was
mm-hmm,
miserable. I mean, it'd been rehabbed 3 or 4 times,
mm-hmm.
and we just got finished rehabbing the berthing compartments before I transferred. And I actually was in charge of the refurb, and my rack was truly customized, like with a hidden outlet and all kinds of stuff, and it was still nowhere near what I had on the Hewitt. It was definitely the Hilton compared to a ratty Motel 6.
It was incredible. So cool. So let me find out a little more about why did you go in the Navy? Because I kind of look at this podcast as being something that will help, say, new sailors, people who might be looking at going into the Navy. Once we get into those sea stories, people might be really interested in joining the
Right.
Navy. That's part of the reason why I went into the Navy, and just kind of tell everybody what I went through. I didn't know what I wanted to do in the military, or actually after high school. I decided to go into the Navy because, for one, the Air Force, I didn't want to get stuck in the middle of nowhere.
No.
Minot, North Dakota didn't sound good to me. Omaha, Nebraska didn't really sound great to me, or you wouldn't even be on Omaha. You'd be out in the middle of Nebraska somewhere. And then the Army, I really wasn't big into camping outside.
Right.
And the Marines, I didn't want to storm a beach. So I thought, hey, how about the Navy? Because the Navy bases are close to beaches. So
Right.
I was stationed in Pensacola Beach, Virginia Beach, and then Tokyo, which we did have Kamakura Beach that was close by. But yeah, why did you look at joining the Navy versus other services?
So if we go back and think about stuff that I enjoyed when I was a child, I grew up on a lake, but I grew up watching McHale's Navy,
Oh
Mr.
yeah.
Roberts, all those good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
movies and TV shows. My dad was in Korea. Our next door neighbor on the lake was in World War II, and he was in the Navy. My dad was in the Army. They would go back and forth all weekend, pissing on each other about who was the better service and blah 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 blah. This, and at the end of the weekend, Jim would always look at my dad and says, "We had clean sheets and hot meals."
Mm-hmm.
I had a
Yeah.
stepbrother that was in. He was a yeoman. We really didn't talk a lot before I went in. The only thing he really told me to do, he's like, when you get to boot camp, they're going to start assigning jobs to people, and there's one job they can't assign. I can't tell you what that job is. He says, but they can't assign it. It has to be volunteered, and it's the best job to have. So when they ask for a volunteer, raise your hand and don't put it down. I'm like, okay, because I kind of remember that. So why did I join? I dated the same girl all through high school. She was same age as me, but graduated a year early, so she went to college. When she went to college, I thought going to class was kind of a suggestion instead of a requirement.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have enough credit hours to graduate because I skipped 68 days and one quarter had a B average, and they're like, "You don't have enough credit. You're not here enough, so we're not going to graduate you." And I'm like, "Okay, peace out. Join the Navy." And that's what I did. I went through the recruiter. Well, and also the recruiter called me on and said, "Hey, let's meet." And I don't even remember sitting in the paperwork. And I was like, "Well, I work." And he's like, "Well, how about you work at Memorial Day?" I'm like, "No, I'm not working Memorial Day." He's like, "I have my son in the afternoon, but I'll meet you at 9 o'clock at the office on Memorial Day." And anybody that's a veteran knows that's a day off, so he didn't have to come
Mm-hmm.
in. So I met him. Um, he sent me the MEPS. I went and took my ASVAB and did all that. They came back and said I was going to be an aviation maintenance administrator at AZ. Had no idea what any of that was. Took that, went to late entry for 6 months. Then I went the day before I was supposed to transfer. I went and got my GED. Went down, had my GED. They reclassified me. I had a choice of electrician mate, I think, an ET, electronics technician, and a fire control technician. And fire control technician, or FC, was the only thing that we worked on. We ran and fixed our own stuff. Everything else, like, you either ran or somebody else fixed it. And I'm like, this sounds pretty cool. So I took it. And then when I took it, everybody's like, "How'd you get that?" I have no idea. In hindsight, everybody I know had in their ASVABs were in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And my ASVAB was a 68 with a
Mm.
GED. So I have no idea how the hell I got advanced electronics, how I got fire controlman. But my sister came back and picked me back up at MEPS because I got reclassified. Instead of going to Orlando, I was now going to San Diego. I went back the next morning. They put me on a plane. I flew first class to San Diego, had steak and lobster, and landed in October of '85. And life changed shortly after that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how I made. Oh, well, actually, I do know how I made AW. I just kind of funny. You said you went from you were supposed to go down to Orlando, but then you went down to San Diego. It wouldn't have been bad to go to Orlando in October. It is bad when you go to Orlando in August, like I did. So
Right,
I was a couple years after you. I went in August '88, but it was so stinking hot. And then
right.
by the time we finally got out in October, it was a lot cooler. It was nicer at that point. So you would have been okay. But then San Diego's the same temperature the whole damn time. So
Yeah,
it's not bad.
yeah. Boot camp in
Awesome.
San Diego was not bad.
Mhm. And then where'd you go on for A school?
So I got lucky. So San Diego got there in October. Graduated the Friday before Christmas, so they sent us all.
Mm-hmm.
We got 2 or 3 weeks leave, so I went home on leave for until we had to be back for basic electricity and electronics in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
which was self-paced. Had to be
Okay.
back there like the first right after New Year's Eve. I can't remember exactly what date that was in '96, but that was self-paced, and I was there until April, and then a kid from Atlanta, and then being in San Diego, they flew me to Great Lakes. I landed in Great Lakes on like April 16th of
Oh,
'86,
okay.
and it snowed. I'm
Oh,
like, what the hell is this? So then I went to Fire Control A school and C school both in Great Lakes.
oh, perfect, perfect. So back to back, A school, C school, because that was a little different for me as an electronic warfare tech. They
Right,
sent us out to the fleet after A school, so I did 2 years in Japan. That's how you knew me.
right.
When I went back, I flew out of the Red Sea. I went out of Hurghada. Actually, yeah, I was out of Hurghada. I flew
Suffolk.
out of.
Yeah, we were either in Hurghada or Suffolk, one or the other.
We were outside that destroyer tender
Right,
in Safka. I remember they put beer on the pier for
right.
us, and then the next morning I had to get up early and grab an awful taxi going to the airport up in Hurghada. It was horrendous. Ugh. It just the worst flight getting out of there, and the taxi drivers, I don't understand when they start yelling at people, they can
Right.
actually spit mid sentence. That just always amazed me. They just, and they're always yelling at people. They drive with a horn. So that's the sort of thing I remember about Egypt. I'm not a fan. I really don't want to go back to Egypt. The nice
um,
thing about Egypt was we went diving. Did you go diving with us, or did you go up to the pyramids?
I went to the pyramids. I can't remember if I was dive certified by that time or not, because I know we did do a certification in the
Hmm.
Philippines that Cam
Oh,
set up.
okay. Yeah, I would imagine that I'll get Cam on this as well. I'll bug him going, did you go
Yeah, it
diving with
needs to be
us?
two and
Because
a half hours if you get Cam on here.
yeah, no problem with that. It's not like I'm paying for it. So piece of cake. But yeah, that's something I really love because the where we went down into the Red Sea, it was called the aquarium. And it was incredible because the amount of fish that was swimming around us was
Right,
great. But then we had to go to the local hotel to drink because there was no clubs anywhere, and that was
right,
always a challenge in the Middle East is finding places to drink.
right.
So, and who knows? I always think about what am I going to name this podcast episode? Probably finding places to drink.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
when I found we were in Oman and we were at the Intercontinental
Yep.
when I found out I'm 85.
Oh, cool.
So
Oh, that's
that was
awesome.
kind of strange because when I got to the Hewitt, it was pretty much everybody's first ship,
Mm-hmm.
and it was my fourth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
So that so this is a great segue. Once you get done with C school, what was your first command?
so got done with C school, graduated, came home to Atlanta for about a month, bought a car, and at my grandparents, drove home to Atlanta, spent a month in Atlanta, then flew to New Jersey, met a guy that was in my C school class in Jersey. Went to a Phillies game, and he's like, they were playing San Francisco, and of course, I, I'm just the dude. I'm like, I'm going to root for San Francisco. Never do that in Philly because
Yeah.
that was horrible. But it was me, him, his sister, and one of her nurses, and I had no idea what. I was still kind of naive, still in love with my high school girlfriend. Kind of blew off that opportunity, and then we flew from there to Sigonella, Sicily,
Oh,
and
wow.
they put us out in the middle of nowhere and didn't tell us anything about siestas or whatever they call it over there. So as soon as we
Mm-hmm.
get to this village that's out in the middle of nowhere, this is 1986.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is 1986. Um, late summer '86. There's no taxis. There's no Ubers. There's no DoorDash. There's no cell phones. There's no nothing. So we're out in
Right.
the middle of Sicily, like in the country, have no money. I
Mm-hmm.
don't even know if we have. I'm sure I had some U.S. money, but nothing like I was planning. So couple weeks there, and really just left out there to fend for ourselves, not even knowing
Wow.
when they're going to come get us or when anything. So then they send us to Gulshuk, Turkey. Land in the airport at Gulshuk, Turkey. I have my sea bag. Dan's with me. Dan Bucco, the guy that was in C school with me from Philly.
Mm-hmm.
There's bits and pieces of this I remember and some that I don't remember, and it's probably because I don't want to remember it. But I can remember a, a, a walk from when the taxi or the bus dropped us off to
Mm-hmm.
the Turkish Navy base that seemed like hours in
Hmm.
our dress uniform with our sea bag, and you got everything you own with
Yeah.
you.
Everything.
Get to the ship next morning. We get underway. As soon as we get underway, my stomach does a flip flop. I look out the porthole, never have another problem. First or second night out, and I've tried to look this on the map to try to figure out where we were. Um, I see a volcano off the port side at about midnight, 10 o'clock midnight, shooting lava up into the sky. So it was pretty cool.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's an experience that not many people would have. I mean, I haven't seen anything blow up before.
yeah. So
And
that was USS Butte. It was AE-27, so it was an ammunition ship.
okay,
So their motto was that we're the ones that reload the guns.
okay,
Um, I was in the gun division. I couldn't drive a forklift. They didn't get me qualified on a forklift. I know we did some other stuff, and then we ended up in Naples. And we were in Naples for about a week and a half. And then all of a sudden, our department head says, "Hey, um, the USS Bowen is coming in. It's a Knox class frigate. It's coming in, and we're going to send you TAD to that because you got to get some quals done because the weapon I went to school on wasn't even on the ship yet. It was going to get installed and
really,
get back to you not to the U.S." So he
okay,
says, "But we need somebody qualified it, or we could never operate it." So,
mm-hmm,
and those were our PQS as a professional qualification standards, I think it stands
yeah,
for.
hmm
So I had to take those. So he's like, we have two choices. We can either drop you off and put you on the Joseph Hughes, which is FF 1078, which my stepbrother was on but already left, or we could just you can get underway with us and we'll send you across on a High Line. And I'm like, yeah, no. So they left us in town, left us on the boat on the Hewitt, and the next day, or not the Hewitt, the Hughes. The next day, the Bowen came in. We went on it, and it was in Naples for 3 or 4 days. So we had an extended stay in Naples,
hmm
and then we got to go. Then we got underway, and we got to do all our quals. But since I was a push button E4, meaning that I got advanced to E4 out of A school, since I
hmm
was on a little ship, they want to make me mess crank, and I'm like, and everybody's like, no, he's over here to TAD. He's not mess cranking.
yeah,
And the Butte was big enough that we didn't have to mess crank as push button E4s.
right, yep,
Um,
that's true.
so so then we went out to sea. We did all of our stuff. The coolest thing was our captain, the commander. I don't even remember his name anymore, but he's like, "Hey, I know that if you put the holdback tool in the Sea Whiz, it can't fire, meaning that the rounds don't go in the firing chamber. And since we were out to sea, and this is when Libya was being stupid, we always had rounds in the gun. So he's like, but we got to do plane guard on the for the Kennedy, so we'll be in front of the Kennedy in case a plane crashes, so we can get the pilots." He says, but as soon as we get in front of the Kennedy, I want y'all to put the Sea Whiz, the phalanx, in full auto with the holdback tool in it. So every F-14 that comes off the flight deck, y'all going to start tracking. So they were coming off straight up like that, and after about the second one, they started going like this because we were
Right.
tracking them and rotating the gun on them. So we did that. We did plane guard in front of Libya for a little while. Um,
Mhm.
and then what was a good thing, what was kind of cool is we were we we just lost. It was a single shaft ship, and we lost our main shaft bearing, so we went dead in the water. So we were just floating in the med for a couple of days.
Oh,
Couldn't
jeez.
couldn't move forward. So the
hmm
Belknap, which was the flagship for the Mediterranean, it was a cruiser. I want to say
Right.
46, 26. But um, what was really cool, what was interesting about the Kennedy and the Belknap being in the Mediterranean at the same time, back in the early 80s or late 70s, the Kennedy hit the Belknap and took everything from the flight from the main deck up off, just decapitated it, and it got
Oh,
towed
wow.
back and got rebuilt. So the Kennedy says that the Belknap hit them. The Belknap says the Kennedy hit them. I don't remember what the Navy actually said, but the Belknap was sent to come get us to give us a tow line to tow us to a safe harbor so we could anchor and get the parts to fix us.
hmm
So we're on sea and anchor detail. If nobody knows what that is, that's where you're getting ready to either leave port or enter port, and you're dealing with all the lines. But I was on the aft sea and anchor detail, and that's where we were going to get the tow line at, and we had to bring it up to the front. So the Belknap came up behind us, and they were going to shoot across a line so we could pull a tow line across. And as they did that, the collision alarm goes off, and the Belknap hits our starboard side on the aft corner and goes the whole side of the ship, tearing off nets and everything off else. And there's a one-star admiral up on the wing, the bridge wing on the Belknap, and he throws this combination cover in the ocean.
God.
So then we finally got that. They pulled us somewhere. We were there, and they took the motor wellboat out because there was going to be a CH-46 CH-53 bring us apart over and drop us off. And I can assume the line shaft bearing, the box was huge. It
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to land beside the motor wellboat. It actually landed in the motor wellboat. I can't understand why it didn't sink, but they
Right.
got that over. And I thought that helicopter seemed as big as the ship I was on. That helicopter was huge.
Mm-hmm. Oh
So
yeah.
we got the main shaft bearing fixed. We got back underway. We did our things, and then got to go do turnover. And turnover was really cool at that time because two battleship groups, one that was in the Med and the one that was coming into the Med. But I think it was the Missouri and the New Jersey. We had two aircraft carrier groups, the Kennedy and whoever was relieving the Kennedy, and we're all into this bay near Sicily. All these ships coming in, and the next morning when we were pulling in, I saw the New Jersey coming over the horizon. And the battleships, if you ever seen any World War II battleships, they just get big and they get big and they get
Mm-hmm.
bigger and they get bigger and they get bigger. And I saw a CH-53 helicopter, the same one that looked as big as the Bowen, land on the back of the battleship and just disappear.
Yeah. Wow.
And then shortly after that, I got transferred back to the Butte. I don't even remember how I got back to the Butte. I don't know if it wasn't a port visit, but I don't remember how I got back. I really don't.
Right.
But while I was on the Bowen, the Butte had some SEALs on board, and somebody got one of the terrorists for the Aquila Laurel out in international
Oh.
waters, and they got him off that boat and back onto the Butte and took him off, and that was part of Operation Goldenrod that they've done movies about that I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't there to see, so it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. No kidding.
So
Well,
that
so
was my
kind of.
first cruise,
Oh, that's awesome.
part of my
Yeah,
first cruise.
and kind of going back to what you were talking about when you first went on when you were on the AE and you went into Naples first time. So that was your first official port visit.
Oh yeah, and
Right? Yeah.
since it was an AE, we weren't port side, we weren't pier side, we were motorboating in.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
And then,
so
so did you have, and with the frigate, were you pier side with the frigate?
yeah, so we were pier side on the Hewitt. They were, if I remember right, they were stern in to the pier, and then the Bowen came in right beside it.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
what's really scary after that is after we left the Bowen left Naples, a week or 2 weeks later, one of the bars that we used to always hang out in got blown up by a terrorist
oh,
the next week.
geez.
So I mean that was
Okay.
the mid eight that was 86, 87, and terrorists were blowing up stuff in the Mediterranean left and right,
Hmm.
especially in Italy and France and Greece.
So what kind of terrorists did we have in the mid 80s in Europe?
The ones that were hijacking planes and ships and blowing up stuff.
Okay.
Go thinking back in all the nightclubs that I was in Italy and France and
Hmm.
Spain. I can't believe I'm still here.
Yeah. I think the only time that I came close to any sort of issues with a port visit was probably in the Philippines, because the Philippines was, they were going through some political stuff,
Right,
and I know that there was people getting killed out in town. I mean, I don't know if it was sailors directly, but there were
right,
people that were and nobody was getting blown up. I
right.
think that was something. It kind of going back to the volcano that you mentioned. I do know that Mount Pinatubo
Pinatubo.
blew up. Yeah, blew up after we left. We were on our
Yeah,
way to the Persian Gulf or Red Sea. Um, while that was going off, I was like, "That's pretty crazy." We just left there. So, and I think it was after Singapore. Even for some reason, I thought it was in between uh, the Philippines and Singapore, but it was actually after that. So I was kind of tracking when I wrote the book. I wanted to track some of the points of interest that
Right.
occurred during our cruises and the ports, and just so I had more things accurate. But so any what kind of memories did you have going out on Liberty the first time? Did you have to wear your whites, or did you? Or because we had a port over there, didn't we?
With Naples, there's an attachment in Naples. Most of the Navy was in Sicily.
Hmm.
Honestly, I don't remember where things were volatile then in the
Oh
Mediterranean
yeah.
in the late. So I don't remember having to be in uniform. Just
Hmm.
like when I was on the Hewitt, I mean, I grew up as a preppy. My mom worked for Polo and Riches and Macy's, so I
Hmm.
had all the collared shirts. So everybody was borrowing collared shirts from me or renting them, however you want to say it. So
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's something that yeah, I don't remember going out and too often in whites, and I think usually would happen like the first day in port. They would want you to go out into with your military uniform, just for the first night. So if you had duty the first night, you kind of got away with it.
right.
Of course, I always see a man in the rails when you're pulling in. I remember that, and then like
Yeah, you didn't
uh,
have to do that when we changed home ports. We had to man the rails in Hawaii, and it's
yeah.
great. And it's very sombering to have to man the rails in Hawaii and
Hmm.
pass to Arizona, but it's a long time to man the rails. Just like when we pulled back in from that cruise. On that cruise, my first cruise, we had a CH-46 crash on our helo deck, and it
Mm,
got strapped down. So we instead of going straight back to New Jersey, we had to go to Norfolk. So
mm.
manning the rails at Norfolk is seems like I don't hyperbole, but for it to say it's 4 hours, but damn it doesn't feel like 4 hours.
Yeah, and I was stationed in Norfolk, and we never had to man the rails because we were stationed there.
Right.
Yeah, that would have been awful because
Yeah.
that's a long roll in because you had to go over the Bay Bridge Tunnel right by
Hmm.
Virginia Beach and then right over I-64. So
Yeah.
that was brutal. But no, I wouldn't do it. So when did you make it to the West Coast? Did you do any other time on the East Coast
Oh yeah.
or any other ships?
So after I got back to New Jersey, we were all trying to get transferred. So we finally, my dad writing congressmen and everything, was going to get me moved to Charleston to an AE there because they were going to reroute our gun mounts to there and install them there. So I got cut orders to go to that, and then they moved. Then they decided they were going to put the mounts back in New Jersey, but I was already transferring, so they sent me to the tender that had no idea what to do with a fire controlman, and I was there for a trip to Gitmo for quals, and then another med cruise. I was actually on that med cruise and reenlisted when I was there at my 4 year mark, and then on that med cruise they flew me back because I could change coast because I was going to a ship that was getting deployed overseas. So
Hmm.
flew home in the middle of that cruise, spent a month on leave, and then I met the ship in San Diego, and then a week or 2 weeks after we met the ship, we left for Japan. And
Okay.
I think they'd only been home for like 6 months before they were going back before they changed it on board.
Hmm. Okay. So when you look back on between being an East Coast sailor and a West Coast sailor, what do you think the big differences are between those? Because what would
So I
I
was
know there's
lucky.
different. Mhm.
I was going to say I was lucky because on the East Coast I was either in New Jersey or I was in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
Both of those are a plane ride away from DC.
Right.
Norfolk is a car ride from DC.
Hmm.
Um, and everybody, so you get a lot of more. You have to deal with a lot of Norfolk sailors even when in New Jersey and Charleston, and they're uptight.
Yep.
Cleanliness, attention to detail, and everything like that. And even the ones that came to Japan that were from the East Coast, the E6, senior E5s and E6s just had an agenda that didn't mesh with the West Coast. It was more chilled. I'm not saying it was more laxed, but you didn't have to keep stuff you didn't have to keep stuff so uptight and so perfect and always be on the edge of your seat because you were worried somebody's going to show up at any hour of the day. Everybody was going to have you're going to have at least a day's notice to get to San Diego, and to get to Japan, you're going to have at least 2 days notice, unless it was one of the leadership in Japan. And then we independent steamed in Japan, so we had the best of both worlds. We were forward deployed.
Yep.
Nobody really screwed with us. We got to go pierside almost everywhere. I mean, when I
Hmm.
tell people we used to go to Hong Kong every 6 weeks to go pierside, they think I'm lying.
Hmm. Yeah, and the thing that really, because prior to the Hewitt, I was on the towers, but we were with the Midway Battle Group, and whenever we went to Hong Kong, we were anchored out in the bay, so we always had to take a tender in. That was what we had to do. When we went into Australia, and the rest of the battle group went to Perth, we went down to Bunbury, which was a little tiny town just south of Perth. But it
Right,
was different because we were able to go pier side, but we were all by ourselves. That was pretty nice. And that was the nice thing about the Hewitt, is that it was Desert Shield at the time. So
right,
they took the Midway out with the rest of the battle group, and they kept us behind, which was great because, then we're forward deployed. We're by ourselves because we just got there. And that was the nice
right.
part about being on the
The
Hewitt.
only time I remember not going piercide on the Hewitt was, I think, Singapore. We had to take boats in.
Yes, we did. We took tenders in for Singapore, and I remember that because um, I was out in the town. I was drinking like usual,
Right,
and I gave Jeff Howard my camera to take back to the ship. I was like, I'm staying out. He was heading
right.
back. Take my camera back, and
Yeah,
of
because he
course,
was he
after
was
I
home. He was home by 9 every night, asleep, getting ready for church the next day.
yeah, no, he wasn't that bad. Yeah, he could have been, but and he'll probably see this too. I'll send this to him, so I'll be like, "Hey, Jeff, here you go." But yeah, he took a damn picture of his bare ass with my camera, and of course, it wasn't until I got back to the States and I developed all my film that I was like, "What a jerk!" So yeah, the fun stuff. So what was some of the ports that you remember the most? What was stands out over the how many years were you in?
8 years,
8 years. Yeah, because I was
5 years
gonna
at
say
sea.
you. Wow. Yeah, there you go. So with 8 years in, because it sounds like you re-enlisted when you were on the East Coast. What
Right.
drew you to re-enlist by just seeing what was on the East Coast, and what really drew
Um,
you to re-enlisting?
I was in the middle. I was married. We were falling apart. My reenlistment bonus was 30 grand.
Oh,
The primary reason. And I was just
there you go.
talking to this about my daughter, who is stationed in Okinawa now as a Marine. She's a second lieutenant. Um, Talking to her about it, I'm like, I said I'm building her a shadow box. I'm like, got asked our congresswoman to get her a flag that's flown over the Capitol so I can put it in. I said you need to tell your enlisted Marines when they're enlisted, they need to ask for a flag that's flown over the command that day. They won't think about it and they'll tell you they won't want it, but in 20 years they're going to want it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to reenlist, and I was going to reenlist at Fort Moultrie, which was a Civil War fort in Charleston, and it was going to be pomp and circumstance. Everybody in their dress uniforms, full dress uniforms of medals and swords
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Then Hugo came through, and the bridge got washed out. So I had to get reenlisted on the bridge in my working uniform with no pomp and no circumstance, and just a $15,000 check after taxes, which was $8,600
Oh.
that I blew, that I wished I had today.
Yeah, that's true. So you re-enlisted, and then you went to the Hewitt on the West Coast,
No,
and
actually, that did. It was probably another. I reenlisted in October.
mm-hmm.
Um, of So I went in '85. I reenlisted in October of, looking at my notes, October of '89. I didn't get to the Hewitt until July of '90. So I did
Wow,
another med cruise, and
yeah,
did a trip to Guantanamo Bay before the med
mm-hmm.
cruise.
Gotcha. Yeah, so once you got over on the Hewitt, it was pretty quick before they just took you right over to Japan.
Oh
Did you
yeah,
know they were going to Japan before you got to
yeah.
the
So
Hewitt?
that's based on budgets. That's the way I could. do a coast one coast to the other coast transfer in the middle and late into the year because basically they had carte blanche to get whoever they needed over there. I really was trying to get on a Tyco cruiser.
Okay.
If I would have known if I would have known what I'd known, I would have never asked for the Tyco because the Tyco is the same ship with 100 more
Yeah.
people on it and
Oh.
no AC into your racks.
Oh. Okay. Well, that's
Basically,
pretty
all the
important.
reason we have AC on the Spruance classes in the racks is because there's no Spy One radar needing all that extra coolant.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's and I really didn't know that either. I just stayed on the Hewitt and I was happy. It was good.
I was getting
Um,
divorced and wanted to get the hell out of Dodge.
there you go. That works. Understandable. So, what was thinking about the ports? I know we did talk about. I mean, that was a nice thing about being with the Hewitt because we were on our own. Hit Hong Kong, Philippines, Singapore. Um, what ports really stand out as being kind of the craziest ports that you went into? The ones that were kind of the most.
Well, I'm going to
I
throw in some
wouldn't.
East Coast ones too because the first time I
Yeah. Yeah.
went to Cartagena, Spain, we
Okay.
could go everywhere. The second time I went there, we there was a big area that was off limits. Of course, that I knew the back door into it from being there the first time. So so Rhoda was kind of cool. Cartagena was cool. Um, every time the Butte went to Palma Mallorca, I was on the Bowen, so I missed those. But Cannes, Toulon in France was good. Took an
Mm.
overnight train and spent 3 or 4 days in Paris during that. That was cool. Naples is unique.
Hmm.
There's a base above it, Naples, about an hour and a half, called Gaeta.
Okay.
There's a repair depot up there. So when I was on the tender, we went there. So that was cool. Um, we went past a lot of places in northern Africa. We never stopped. So we went by Libya and we went by all that, but we never stopped. Um, Golshuk would have been a really good place if I would have been there any more than 12 hours because it
Hmm.
was right next to Istanbul or close to Istanbul. I flew into Istanbul and then took a bus to Golshuk.
Hmm.
Um, West Coast, Hawaii was great. My sister-in-law had met me in Hawaii. That was kind of strange. We pull in. There's a female lieutenant, or she was a junior grade at the time, standing on the pier in her dress whites or her working white skirt and heels, waiting for me. As soon as the brow went down, she was up wanting me, and everybody's like, figured she was there for the captain or something, but she was wanting E4 Clements. So that was all kind of cool. She was there, so that was kind of cool. I got to see her. Um, I like Guam. Guam was cool because it was just laid back, and we rented a Miata and we had fun at the beach. Philippines is the Philippines. That's great.
Hmm.
Thailand, Pattaya Beach and Phuket, they're great. Darwin was cool. Um, Oman is cool. Jeddah, we pulled into Jeddah and went pierside there when we were in the Red Sea. I think you're already gone then, but I didn't get. You really had to be invited, so that was kind of.
Yeah.
I didn't leave the ship. Um, Went to the British Consulate General's house for a dinner in Hong Kong one time. That was cool. Willie Parks was with me, and he was kind of miffed. He's like, "How do you get along with everybody? How do you talk to everybody?" I'm like, they're just people, dude.
Yeah.
You know, try to have some
Well, that's
situational awareness and try to carry on conversations that that works with them, not always about yourself.
absolutely, absolutely. Do you remember going to Brunei?
I don't. I know we went, and I think I got off the ship, but I don't remember.
Yeah. You know what it was is because we trained their navy,
Right,
and for a reward to train their navy, they gave us a picnic on a break wall. It was
right.
basically a man-made break wall with a little beach setting. They
Yeah.
set up some grills, made some burgers for us, and it was like a little landing craft that we were on that they beached
Yeah,
for us, and
I
we were able to
remember
get
the
off.
pictures. I remember the pictures and stuff there,
Hmm.
but I don't remember getting off the ship. I know somebody had a medical issue that had to get off and go into town. It's for his eyes, I think. I don't remember
Mm.
who it was, but
Okay. Yeah, I remember. I do have a picture. I think it was Mike Elliott was on that with me, and I still have that picture. I still have a lot of that stuff. So
Right.
yeah, and it's like, look at the Sultan of Brunei, and all they can do for us is just give us a little picnic on a break wall. So that was
Yeah, and
not the best port visit.
yeah, and he's got $1 million cars and all kinds of crap.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that was a good little trip. But um, so thinking about the Navy days, what kind of shaped you? Like looking back on what you did in the Navy, has any of that really affected what you do today? How does what happened in the Navy affect you today?
Well, one, you do acquire a level of understanding about why you need situational awareness and why you have to pay attention to detail. When I tell everybody, the biggest skill that I ever learned in the Navy was it takes a lot less effort to do your job than try to get out of your job.
Hmm.
I learned that on my second ship. The Sea Whiz with Phalanx is really unique because it's all self-contained and you take care of everything. You take care of the coolant, you take care of the hydraulics or the pneumatics, you take care of the servos, you take care of the computers, take care of all the electronics, the radar, the gun. So you take care of all of it. So it's really good for learning how things work as a system. And I've always been a systems engineer since I got out, and I think it works. I think that's the reason why.
Yeah, so yeah, that just trying to figure things out because, like you said, we are out at sea. We had to fix our own stuff. You couldn't really call anybody. You had to just figure it out, and that was just something that even a lot of people that have worked for me in the past, they always gave me a hard time because my kind of go-to phrase was always, "We'll figure it out." Well, I think that really came from the Navy. We'll
Right.
figure it out. I'm not
Mhm.
going to sit there and just think, "Oh, we'll call somebody else. Let them fix it for us." I just don't have that attitude. I need to be able to just figure it out myself. And hey, you know what? Together, we'll figure it out. And I know, like I said, some of my friends that have worked for me in the past will be like, "God damn it, why do you say that?" Because I,
So I have my radar was down and I needed to swap something. I needed to replace a card, and I think it was like $80,000 or
hmm
$8,000. I forget what, but basically Commander Volpe, who was our CO, didn't want to spend the money,
hmm
and he didn't like the
well,
way he didn't like the way I was troubleshooting.
oh, jeez.
So I was on the. He called me to the bridge and got us a secure link to one of the other ships, and there was an E6 fire control tech. Because I think Mike was Mike Malone, who was my E6 at
Oh,
that
yeah.
time. I think he was
hmm
home on emergency leave because of the volcano erupting
hmm
in the Philippines where his family lived. But I'm standing on the bridge, on the port side of the bridge. Volpe's in his chair, and I'm on the the secure link to the other ship, and it's on speaker, so Volpe could hear what the other guy's saying. He definitely could hear what I'm saying. He says, the guy says, do the X, Y, Z. And I'm like, cannot do that. Charlie Oscar does not concur with that type of troubleshooting.
Oh,
And Volpe
no.
looked at me and I looked at him and, dude, I'm not going to look like an idiot to one of my peers because you won't let me do what I was trying to do.
Right. Oh,
And that's
jeez.
probably why I'm going to lose the job I'm at right now because basically I told the CFO last Friday the same thing.
There you go. See, well, see, it just flows right on through with the Navy.
Yep.
It's what happens in the Navy. It does happen out at just the real world as well. As I say, um, why do they say the real world compared to the Navy? Was it just a fake world that we lived in?
I don't know because when Isha was in Quantico, she was complaining about that. I'm like, you're 35 minutes from DC. I said that is not
Mhm.
the real Marine Corps. And then
No.
she was at 29 Palms, it was a little bit less, and now she's in Okinawa and actually in Korea right now. Um, and she still has issues. I said, at least now, I said you know everybody you're dealing with has dealt with the same things you've dealt with.
hmm
And that's why I think we could deal with it a little bit easier in the military because we know what everybody else had to do to get to where they're at. In the civilian world, or the real world, or whatever you want to call it, you have no idea what they know, what they've been through, what they can handle,
hmm
what they can't handle. Because I don't want to use the snowflake word, but
Yeah.
close to it.
Oh yeah. 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 Because I mean, and of course, I'd love to be able to talk to somebody that's in the Navy now. Actually, I do know somebody that's in the Navy right now. He's part of the VFW. that I'm my posts in
We
Parker.
still know somebody. We know an E5 that was God to all of us. It's now a
Well, we
captain.
do, yeah, and I'll wait till he retires to get him on this podcast. But
Right.
I do have a friend. I think he's a chief, and he's a younger guy. But I'll have to find out, kind of what he has to give me feedback on. But yeah, that's what I think is pretty cool about this podcast is it gives me the ability to talk to people and just hear their stories. And
Right.
one story that I'm curious about is just what was your transition out of the Navy? Like what made you decide? Because after 8 years, instead of reenlisting again, what made you decide to say, what, I'm
Actually,
good with the Navy?
so I was advanced electronics, so I went in for 6. So I had a 4-year
Hmm.
contract with a 2-year extension. And I enlisted before the 2-year extension went in.
Yep.
So when I reenlisted at 4, I reenlisted for 6. So I had
Oh,
10 years I had a total of 10 years to do. And
okay.
then in 93 February or into January, Super Bowl Sunday, and then coming that following Monday, one of my good friends that was on the 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 Sierra with me got killed by a drunk driver. So that kind of made you start thinking about reality, right?
Right.
Um, and then September, August of September of '95, my sister-in-law who had been in Hawaii that met me when we pulled in Hawaii. She was now in Japan, in northern Japan, and she had an aneurysm and died on active duty. So I had 2 people that I really cared about die. And
Oh wow.
then, like I said, I got paid $30,000 to reenlist. That was that was Bush. Clinton
Hmm.
came out and pulled and took my NEC for CWIS off the list so I could take an early out, and he paid me 20 grand to get out.
Really, you got paid to get out? Oh,
Yeah.
darn it! I did not. I
Well,
did
they
not
took a
get
lot of
paid.
my bonus back too, but see, that was
Oh,
another
they
thing.
did.
I reenlisted on October 1st, so I got my bonus on October 1st. And a lot of people would always ask for their accelerated bonus because they reenlisted whatever date they reenlisted in.
Yeah.
But you could always request to get your money on the 1st of October if there was a budget,
Hmm.
and it'd come down around second, third, or fourth, or fifth of October, and I would have my annual um, payment right.
Hmm.
I go to disperse it. They're like, I'm like, where's my reenlistment bonus annual payment, whatever they called it. They're like, oh, there's no budget. Yeah, you can't get it. And I'm like, my shit was due October 1st. I
Right.
want my stuff now. And I'd usually get a check cut the same day or the next day because there's no
Hmm.
direct deposit back then.
Right. That's true. Um, I- yeah, that's a great point. I think we did go through some direct deposits back
Towards
when
the
I
end,
was in. Maybe.
you
Yeah.
started on the Sierra. We had payment ATMs on the ship and ATM cards where we could take our money out, but we didn't have direct deposit per se. We had allotments,
Mm,
and then
okay.
we had direct deposits. And
Yeah.
I swear, in '86, they moved the September 30th payment to October 1st, and then we
Hmm.
started getting paid on the 1st and 15th instead of the 15th at the end of the month.
Wow.
And now
Okay.
Isha says it's back to the way it's swapped back again. So I don't know. Maybe I'm confused.
Is it the 15th and end of the month?
Yeah,
Is that what? Yeah, I know a lot of financial companies will do that. Anybody that's associated with the government will do that. The company I'm with right now, they go to every other week, which is nice. So instead of 24 paychecks, you get 26 paychecks, and that 2 extra paychecks, you don't have to worry about the taxes or 401k being taken out. But boy,
right,
the I remember I I don't know if I still have my old pay stubs from the Navy.
right.
I think that last year I probably made like um,
Nothing.
$18,000 that last year. So, which, come on, $18,000 a year. That's just you can
Right.
do that nowadays on DoorDash.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know how much a sailor gets paid nowadays. I don't know what it looks like. It'd be
Well, my
interesting to
daughter
see.
was making about 90 when she went in. She took about a two-third pay cut.
Wow. Okay, and she's an officer. Right,
Yeah,
so
she's a second one, and she has to pay for her food.
really,
Yeah,
oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah.
geez. All right. Yeah, I think one of the times I remember just dealing. I didn't really deal with the officers that often at all. Um, I think the only time that I had to deal with them, I had to drive them to. I think it was at Sugi Air Base out of Yokosuka, because that was something that I was a ship's driver since I had the experience of driving when I was on the towers. They
Right.
just said, "Hey," and one of my side gigs, I'm still doing side gigs today. I did side gigs in the Navy. I drove taxis in Yokosuka,
Oh yeah.
and that was just
For the
something
Jimmy
I had.
O'Daniels.
Yeah, oh, it's so cool. I mean, I made some extra cash. I think if we did an after show, I'd tell you what I use that after show or what tell you what I use that cash for, but we'll
Right.
just leave that. But um,
Yakisoba outside the base.
yeah, there
Two
you go.
straight
I had
stack on the
yakisoba.
left.
Exactly. But yeah, I had to drive these officers up to Atsugi Air Base for uh, some meeting on a Friday, and they were all concerned about the traffic. And I got them there quick. I got them back home quick, and I think I did have to pay for my meals, but they did spot me some cash. Right, I might
Isn't
have
that
gone to the mess hall.
is that the base that had the hostels that you could stay at in outside of Tokyo? There's some base up there, some Air Force base that we would get hostels at if the new
Hmm.
Santa was full, but you had to be there before midnight or something.
Yeah,
And
I know what you're talking about.
I
I've
only
stayed there
stayed there
before.
once because I was like, this is worth the college.
It was downtown. It was I remember that. Yeah, it was close to the new Sano, and I remember always trying to get in there. I was able to get into the new Sano a lot, so that
Me too.
was it was a good thing. And I think that's where I don't know if you were with me, but I did take several of the guys from the Hewitt when you first pulled in, because everybody was like, "Yeah, we're going to circus." You're not going to circus. We're going to Roppongi. So I took them to Roppongi, and then, of
Oh
course
yeah,
they're
I
like,
lived in Roppongi. Roppongi disc.
"Yeah, oh, I love Roppongi. Yeah,
I'd
that's
always just book a suite. I never tried to book
mhm.
the cheapest room at the New Santa. I just booked the most expensive. I always had a king suite, and there's always one of those available.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, the dollar beers, just get good and drunk there, and then just pour yourself into a taxi, go to Roppongi, have
Go to Hard
fun.
Rock.
With
That's
just
where I met Bahar. Were you there when I
okay.
met Bahar? I think you'd already left when I met Bahar.
Yeah, I was there for 1 year.
The Turkish stewardess.
Okay, okay, yeah. Oh, you gotta love Roppongi. Yeah, I would go to Hard Rock occasionally, but not that often. I did have some friends that were Japanese. They lived down in Shinagawa, and they took me to what's the Beatles bar that people would always go to? It was something, not Abbey Road, but it was something similar where it was a replica of kind of what the Beatles did when they were in London, but uh, it was in Tokyo. It was in Roppongi,
You remember the?
and mhm.
Go ahead. I was going to say, do you remember the Japanese girl that dated somebody a couple ships down from us that had the older Corvette, like the '69 or '70 Corvette?
No, I don't remember that one.
Because having older cars over there, taxes was insane. So I was like,
Hmm.
what does her dad do? What does she do?
Right, right.
It was like '72 or '71 Corvette.
Hmm. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's same thing, because I think we were able to buy Harleys and buy Yamahas on base cheap.
Yeah.
And I did know some guys that they would drive Harleys around the base, and they'd take them off base. But you had to have a special license to drive those larger motorcycles
Hmm.
out into the economy, because actually with the Navy you didn't need them, but
Right.
the Japanese citizens, they had to have special licenses, so all their motorcycles were smaller. And even I would always go to a place called Showadori, which was right outside of Wano, and it was just one full street of nothing but motorcycles on both sides. That
Wow.
was where I would usually hang out, so it was a good time. But yeah, that's I think of all the ports I've been to, you just being stationed in Japan was probably the best for me.
Right.
I loved Hong Kong. It was great. Singapore,
Oh,
short visits.
I didn't.
Um,
Even, I didn't even think about when you're talking about ports. I didn't even think about home ports. Charleston was beyond great.
oh yeah,
That's like the paradise on the East Coast. It's got
okay,
culture. It's got culture. It's got
hmm
colleges. It's got great beaches.
Yeah.
And
Were you able to blend in a little more in Charleston compared to, because like, well, San Diego, I think you can kind of blend in a little more. And the reason why I bring that up is that you can't blend in Norfolk. You're stuck.
right, right,
You've got short hair. You're in the Navy.
right.
That's it.
Probably a little bit. I mean, I was married part of the time in Charleston, and I wasn't married, or I was separated for the rest of the time in Charleston. I never had any problem. But if you know me, I really don't give a shit. I just go do. I'm gonna be me no matter where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
or bad.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, we hung out back in December. That was a great time. I mean,
Yep.
that was really cool to be able to get together after all these years, and just it was got right back into just those conversations that we had, 30
Yep.
years ago, and
Yep.
it's just that camaraderie that we have, and and I know what my answer is, but what do you think is the like of all the shipmates that we've had, what is like the ship that you have the most friends on or from?
Oh, it's head and shoulders. It's the Hewitt. I mean, I don't know. I don't keep in touch with anybody off the Butte, and of course TAD to the Bowen. That wasn't going to happen. There's actually a guy in the town next to me that he had a Butte hat on at Kroger, and I was talking to him, and he got there. We were there about the same time, but different divisions, so I didn't know
Huh.
him. But there was nothing from him. And like, hey, what's your number? How can we? I'm like, there's nothing. Like, hey, peace out, dude. I'm done. Had to be it had to be the Hewitt, and I don't know if it's because of the size of the ship, the
Hmm.
mission of the ship, the port visits we had, actually having wartime deployment probably didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing I do remember about the first ship I was on, the Butte, which was really really cool, is when I got there about a year after the shipyards in Mobile, and they adopted a mutt dog from the shipyard. So we had a dog on board named Dixie. It was like a gold retriever mix. So
Huh.
we had a dog on that ship.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I definitely agree with about the Hewitt. And I don't have a lot of friends from the towers that I was like really close with. I do have a former EW. Him and I are real close. I mean, him and I spoke just a couple weeks ago, and
right,
I'll get him on this podcast. But I think even when we were on the ship together, we weren't real good friends because we did work together. But there's a few that I kind of keep in touch with the Towers. The Towers has an incredible reunion staff, so they'll go through every year. They have a reunion, and it's well organized. They have a committee. They elect officers. They have a budget, and it's
right,
really they set it up really well. But a lot of these guys are plank owners from the mid '60s,
right,
and then here I am. I'm on the decom crew, so I'm the
right,
young guy, and
right.
I was 19 when I went on that ship.
And we're not young
So
anymore.
right, and these guys are a little older. So the next one they're having is in September in New Orleans. I'm debating. I think I might go to that one. I just got to figure it out. It's a little ways off, but that would be pretty cool. But the Hewitt, yeah, like you said, I don't know why, but I just had so many friends from there, and then I
And
even
what's
ran
funny
in.
is, even
Mhm.
on Facebook, the group of us that went there and was that moved them to Japan,
Uh-huh.
it's like we're in a capsule and nobody else matters.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And I was so thankful to be able to get those orders from the towers to the Hewitt. And what was nice is that I bought a motorcycle right before I left the towers, and
Right,
I had it shipped back to my hometown
right,
because I transferred from one ship
right.
to the other, and because of that transfer, I was able to do a move and get my motorcycle shipped back for free. Oh, what a great time that was!
You
So.
still got it?
No, I sold it. It's in the book. Oh my god, I got everything in a stupid book. No, I put it in there because I once I got back from the Red Sea, I took the motorcycle down to Pensacola for my C school. Drove it the whole time. It was awesome, wonderful time to have the bike down there. But then when I got kind of screwed over, sent to Norfolk, I took the motorcycle back to Indiana where I was from, and I
Right.
sold it because I had this grand dream of, hey, when I get to Norfolk, I'm going to buy a boat and I'm going to be able to just tool around on that boat. It'll be awesome. But then once I got to Norfolk, I already had the bike sold back in Indiana, and the guy wrecked it. He wrecked my bike, and I was so pissed. But yeah, I mean, he bought it, so I was out no money. But when
Right.
I got to Norfolk, I never did buy that stupid boat. So,
Yeah, I
but
almost bought a boat when I was in on Wallops Island after I got out of the Navy, working at Wallops Island, the NASA base up there.
mm,
Because you can buy old boats sometimes cheap.
yeah, yeah. I mean, someday but I live in Colorado. What am I going to do with a boat in Colorado? People have boats in Colorado. They sell boats all the time in Colorado. But what are you going to do with a boat in Colorado? You're kind of landlocked, and so
You
it's no fun. If I move to somewhere like Florida, I might look at getting a boat. But yeah, that's a nice thing. It's I'm still drawn to the sea. I do like to go on cruises. You were mentioning, the Mediterranean. The only Mediterranean cruises I've been on was the Royal Caribbean, and they're awesome. But the nice thing
know?
about those is that you're still out at sea, but you don't have to work. So
Oh
there's
yeah,
no going, getting up and stand and watch. I don't have to worry about stand and watch anywhere.
yeah.
When
So
we
one of the
pull in. Mhm.
when I was on the Sierra, we went to we we went to Port Everglades, which is basically Fort Lauderdale. One
Yep.
time was a
Hmm.
port visit, and then
Yep.
we went to Paradise Island, Bahamas. That was a port visit one time. They went to
Oh yeah.
Boston twice, but I stayed behind. But they went to
Mm.
Boston, so I didn't get to go to those two. Isha is actually in Korea, and they're getting ready to take the HST from Korea back to Okinawa. And what an HST is the high speed transport hydrofoils that they used to use in Hawaii. The
Okay.
civilian use, they went out of business and the Navy bought them, and now they're in a USNS ships. And she's like, it's going to take us 2 weeks to go from Korea to Okinawa on these things. Why does it take so long? I'm like, you're just going to be turning circles, and the crew's going to be doing drills.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they probably won't put them up on hydrofoils that much. They'll just kind of slowly steam those things over. I don't love a steam, whatever. But cool.
Yeah,
Well,
they're all gas turbines.
yeah, absolutely. So, Rob, thanks so much. I was going to say, do you want to plug any of your ventures right now? The coffee, anything
Well, the
else?
biggest ones, well, Sailor Slush Coffee is out there. It's gourmet coffee. It's a little pricey, so if you're not a coffee snob, you probably won't appreciate it. It's about $20 a pound.
Uh-huh.
Um, if you're starting a new business or trying to grow your business, my sweet spot is taking entrepreneurs from startup to $5 million as quick as possible in annual revenue. My IT business supports business up to about 150 million a year in revenue for IT solutions and support, and my cybersecurity business is anything over probably a billion. I say 125 billion, but I can handle it all. But one is e2ceo.com. That's the letter E to CEO.com. It stands for entrepreneur to CEO. The other one is Peach IT Services. And the other one is really weird because it's IT Cyber Defense with a CE instead of an SE like the European or the British version of defense.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks. And of course, I do have Deception underway on sale at Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com. Kobo, it's on Kindle, it's on hard copy. You can order from my website. Uh, what is I do have Patrick-Riley.com, and I also have underweightbooks.com. So you can order
And
from
from the
any of
right
those.
amount of Bitcoin, you'll send them a signed one, right?
Right. Yeah. I'll sign a book. I do have, I bought some envelopes, shove it in an envelope. I'll sign it. Well, I'll sign the envelope. I'll sign the book too. So
Yeah.
I am doing an event next Saturday. So I believe it's oh, help me
The
out
day
here.
before Mother's Day.
It is. It is. Is it the 9th or 10th? It's the 10th. So Mother's Day is on the 11th. So on the 10th, I'll be in Tavern on the Lake in Hobart, Indiana. That's where I grew up. So that's where I'm going. So I'll see a lot of my
Oh,
high
cool.
school friends and relatives are back there. And then at the end of the month, I'll be back in Parker. So at the Bodega Beer Company in Parker, Colorado. And I'll be doing a book signing from 2 to 6 that day as well. So I'm trying to get out more and sell the books. Yesterday, I was at a Kentucky Derby event. I work security, and while I was there, I tried to sell as many books as I could. But of course, I had my suit coat on and my glasses, and I had to kind of look official. But then, of course, when people were trying to get into the restroom, where I had basically had the VIP section blocked off, um, I should have brought like a whole stack of books and been like, "Yeah, if you need to use a restroom, a book is $100 a book. I'll sign it for you, but then you can go use a restroom." I don't know if that would be ethical or not. I'd probably err and say it wouldn't be ethical at all.
So, what would it take for somebody to get you to show up, read some passages from the book, eat some monkey meat, and drink some San McGill's?
Oh, actually, I'll pay for that. I'll pay. Hey, you tell me where, when. I mean, I would imagine Subic. Is it a Barrio Barreto? What? Where are we talking? I mean, I guess we can go to Manila, but come on, we'd rather go to Subic, and we'll tell the stories there. So
Yeah,
that's great. Well, Rob, again, thanks so much for the time. I'm
no
going to be
problem.
bugging our
Appreciate it.
other buddies. If you see anybody, you're like, hey, this is pretty cool. Just point them in my direction. You got my email stuff. So
Will do. I will.
awesome, man. Cool.
Okay,
Thanks, bud. Talk to you
no
soon.
problem.
All right,
Talk to
bye.
you later, man.